Let me ask you a very direct question. When a man who built his entire public identity on being visible, on being vocal, on being the face of a global ministry network, when that man suddenly goes completely silent and refuses to speak to anyone, what does that tell you? Now, I know some of you will say, maybe he is grieving. Maybe he needs time. Maybe the loss of Joni has broken him in ways we cannot see. And I hear that. I genuinely do. But here is where I need you to think carefully, because there is a difference, a very significant difference, between a man who retreats into grief and a man who retreats from accountability. And what we are seeing with Doug Weiss right now, the silence, the deleted comments, the locked accounts, the cropped photographs, the disappearance from Daystar's airwaves, that is not the silence of a broken-hearted widower. That is the silence of a man who does not want to answer questions. And today, we are going to talk about exactly why Doug Weiss was not a quiet man. Let's be absolutely clear about that. Before Joni Lamb died on May 7th, 2026, Doug Weiss was everywhere. He was co-hosting Ministry Now on Daystar television. He was posting daily counseling content on his Dr. Doug Weiss handle. He was speaking to audiences about marriage, relationships, and heart-to-heart healing. He gave a full, emotional, public eulogy at Joni's memorial. He held her hand on camera. He called her his baby. He told the world they were lovers for life. This was not a man who shied away from the spotlight. So why, the moment questions start circling, real questions, structural questions, financial questions, does he go completely dark? Think about that timeline. The memorial service happens, the tearful speech happens, and then nothing. No statement about his future role at Daystar. No address to the viewers who supported him and Joni through her illness. No reassurance to donors. No message to the community. Nothing. And I want to be very precise here because this matters. When leaders in public-facing ministries step away from the cameras, there is almost always a statement. There is almost always an explanation. There is almost always something that says, I am stepping back for this reason, for this season, and here is what you need to know. Doug Weiss gave the public nothing. No statement, no press release, no Instagram Live, no pastoral letter, no word at all. And that silence, in the context of everything we have documented in this series, is not neutral. Silence is a choice. And Doug Weiss, a man with decades of professional communication experience, a trained counselor who understands the power of words and the power of their absence, made that choice deliberately. The question is, why? Here is what makes this story so remarkable. Doug Weiss did not stumble into media. He built a media presence, methodically, intentionally, over many years. The Dr. Doug Weiss brand was not an accident. It was a platform. Heart-to-heart counseling was not just a ministry. It was a business that relied on public visibility, on the trust of clients and viewers, on people believing in Doug Weiss as an authority. He understood the media. He used the media. He trained an audience to rely on his voice. And now that audience is asking questions, and he will not speak. Not to an interviewer, not to a journalist, not to independent media, not even to his own followers on a platform he controlled. Instead, what we have documented is this: delete the negative comments, block the questioners, lock the X account, crop the photographs, scour the Wikipedia page. That is not the behavior of a man who has nothing to hide. That is the behavior of a man who is very deliberately managing what the public is allowed to see. Sharon Howarth told us this pattern did not begin with Joni's death. It has been going on since the moment Doug Weiss entered the Daystar ecosystem. The deletion, the blocking, the scrubbing, it is a system, not a reaction. And yet, for all that careful management, he cannot answer the one question the community keeps asking. Doug, where are you, and why won't you talk to us? Let me lay out the specific questions that the community, independent media, and concerned observers have been raising. Questions that, to this day, remain entirely unanswered. First, what is Doug Weiss's legal standing at Daystar Television now that Joni Lamb has died? Was his authority at the network tied to his marriage? Did he hold any formal governance position? Did he sign any agreements? The public does not know because he will not say. Second, what happened to the financial arrangements that were made during his time at Daystar? The community has raised serious questions about funds allegedly transferred to a private trust. A private trust removes money from the public ledger of a nonprofit organization. The public cannot audit it. The donors cannot see it. And Doug Weiss has offered no transparency whatsoever. Third, why did Doug Weiss take Joni Lamb to Mexico 4 days before her death? Joni had a spine fracture from metastatic bone cancer. Her liver and kidneys were shutting down. Members of the community with first-hand medical experience of the same diagnosis have stated plainly, you do not move someone in that condition. You cannot. The pain alone makes it impossible. Who made that decision? Under what circumstances? And why does Doug Weiss refuse to speak about it? Fourth, Why was Jonathan Lamb, the son Daystar's founders, envisioned leading the network, effectively sidelined during Doug Weiss's time at the ministry? What role did Doug play in those dynamics? What is Jonathan's status now? These are questions that go to the heart of the network's future and its faithfulness to its founders' intentions, and they remain unanswered. 5. What happened to Heart Counseling's clients and staff during Doug's divorce from Lisa Weiss? Multiple therapists left. A client support group was shut down without notice. People who had paid for help with the most vulnerable seasons of their lives were silenced and blocked. What accountability exists for that? These are not conspiracy theories. These are legitimate questions from donors, viewers, clients, and the Christian community at large. And the man at the center of every single one of them will not speak. I want to be careful with language here, because I believe in fairness. Running from the media does not automatically mean guilt. There are situations where a person retreats from public life for entirely legitimate reasons. Grief, personal crisis, health, legal counsel. I acknowledge that. But here is what separates ordinary retreat from a strategic disappearance. When you are retreating in grief, you do not delete comments, you do not block questioners, you do not lock your accounts and scrub your Wikipedia page. Those actions require someone to be actively monitoring the narrative. Those actions require effort. Those actions require intent. Grief does not moderate your Facebook page in real time. Grief does not crop your tribute photos to hide your wife's first husband's grave. Grief does not launch Wikipedia edit wars 3 days after a death. What we have documented in this series is not passive withdrawal. It is active management. An active management of a public narrative, in the context of unanswered financial and ethical questions, looks exactly like what it looks like. It looks like someone who knows what the questions are, and knows they cannot afford to answer them. But here is what I want to leave you with today. Because for all the deletions, and blocks and lockdowns, and cropped photos, and scrubbed pages, there are things Doug Weiss cannot delete. He cannot delete the gravestone, Joni Trammell Lamb, buried next to Marcus Lamb, identified as Lamb, not Weiss. Carved in granite, that stone stands exactly as it is, no matter how many times he crops the photo. He cannot delete the Wikipedia edit log, time-stamped, permanently archived, a brand new account. 3 days after Joni's death, one single edit, removing specific language. The internet keeps receipts. He cannot delete Sharon Howarth's testimony. A real person, a real client of Heart to Heart. A real support group that was shut down with no explanation while people were blocked for asking questions. He cannot delete Melissa May's medical testimony, a woman whose mother died of the same diagnosis as Joni, triple-negative breast cancer, metastatic to the bones, speaking from lived experience about what it means to move someone in that condition 4 days before death, across a border. He cannot delete the IRS public records, the discrepancy between a $400,000 grant and the $50,000 reported on a postcard 990. That paperwork exists. It is public. It does not disappear, and he cannot delete the people, because for every comment removed, someone has taken a screenshot. For every person blocked, that person shared what they saw somewhere Doug Weiss does not moderate. The community of people asking these questions is not shrinking. It is growing. The internet is forever. The truth is forever. And God does not have a delete button. So here is where we stand. Doug Weiss built a career on visibility. He trained audiences to trust his voice. He positioned himself at the center of a global broadcasting ministry. He claimed the role of husband, leader, counselor, and public figure. And now, when the community he served, the donors, the viewers, the clients, the family members of Daystar, ask him to account for his time in that role, he has gone completely silent. That is a choice. It is not grief. It is a decision. And every day that silence continues, every comment that gets deleted, every questioner that gets blocked.
Anything negative. Joni and Daystar's pages, same policy. Since the minute he entered the scene. Facebook, delete and block. Instagram, delete and block. On X, he locked it down because on X, you can't delete comments. So his solution was to lock the whole account.
Every account that stays locked, that silence speaks louder than anything Doug Weiss could say into a microphone. We are going to keep asking the questions. We are going to keep documenting the pattern. We are going to keep bringing you what the people inside this story are saying. Because the community of God deserves transparency. The donors deserve accountability. Joni's children deserve the truth. And Jonathan Lamb deserves to be heard. Keep screenshotting. Keep sharing. Keep praying for everyone in this story. And stay rooted, stay real, stay in the Word. God bless you all. We will see you in the next one.